corruption good governance? Are scams good governance? Is profligacy in a bill that does not have the requisite money to fund it good governance? Is lack of decision-making good governance? Is the fact that files are not moving good governance? Why are investors moving away from our country? Let's put this whole issue in perspective. Let's go in for interjections from both sides. If you have a specific interjection, make your point specifically to one individual on this side. So we got 30 seconds with the interjection, and we have a 1-minute response. So Kavya has the first interjection. Go ahead, Kavya.
My question is to Mr. Sanjay Jha.
Yeah.
So he talked about how the government has, achieved 9% growth in 2009, how the government brought a lot of reforms in the last 10 years. I'd like to ask you, sir, can a government really afford to rest on its past laurels? Number one. Number two, he's talked about how we're a vibrant young democracy with a very young population. The government has really not taken any measures to capitalize on this young population. China's doing so brilliantly because they've really invested in their human resource. India's got a really good population as well. We can be thriving in manufacturing if we really invested in this, but we haven't taken steps to do that.
Come
Why?
straight to the question. Yeah.
So let me tell you very straightforward. There's no question of resting on your laurels at all. I mean, this is a continuous challenge for us. I mean, you and a lot of your fellow panelists were complaining about the fact of subsidies being a waste. I mean, Kiran mentioned Manrega is a waste. I can tell you, when you look at India's growth story, you've got to look at each and every Indian. As a government, we're responsible for every citizen in the country. And to borrow on what Professor Amartya Sen said once, he said India has become like islands of California in a sea of sub-Saharan Africa. Because there is poverty all around, and you see pockets of very rich people. So I can tell you in one simple sense that India today, and as a government, we have a responsibility to discharge our policies in the interest of each and every citizen of the country. And I do believe our welfare schemes in particular are targeted towards people who are disadvantaged.
That's a nice pre-election stand which you take, which is dangerous, by the way, about India and Bharat. Let me say this to you, Sanjay Jha. You ask the young audience here, India and Bharat is the same, and let no political party try and create a divide because it thinks it's going to work for it politically. You make, therefore, this debate is hinged on an implicit assumption that the Congress representative makes, that if you want to help the poor of this country, it will be at the cost of the economy of this country.
I'm not saying
that. Well, that's an implicit assumption.
Let me give you one statistic. Let me give you one statistic. India has 56 to 60 billionaires. We also have over 60,000 slums. Now, can we ignore that? That's my challenge for anybody who's a patriotic Indian in his
of governance. The question is of governance. Sonia Gandhi stood up. Let's get. Sonia Gandhi says, well, the money is not there for the food security bill. It will have to be found. And the Prime Minister, as someone wrote, despite being an economist, did not question the inherent contradiction in that kind of a position. You're not going to answer that. I'm going to allow interjection from this side. The young man has an interjection there for you. Go ahead.
I have a question to Pawan Verma. He said that we can't blame politicians because politicians do not have enough.
I blame politicians.
Let him complete. Let the young man complete, Pawan Verma.
The problem a lot of times coming from the overall bench, you were suggesting is that the opposition party block legislative procedures. But often the problem is common sense execution policies and not legislative procedures. A simple case in point is if any infrastructure project needs to get cleared by the road ministry, you first have the tendering process, then a particular private party gets to execute the infrastructure project, but then it's the onus of that private party to go to every single ministry for every single clearance, which just jacks up costs. You're not providing employment for the construction of that bridge, and the public suffers because that actual project is not being implemented. Why can't the clearance process happen prior to the tendering process?
It's a very specific point.
You want me to answer?
Yeah, I would like you to answer him.
No. First of all, I am not disagreeing at all with your critique of why governance cannot be better. The proposition before is that governance is the reason for economic slowdown. I am making a point to you that governance is a consequence of several factors, one of which is the kind of polity which exists or not. Now, my worry about any government, and I'm not speaking only for UPA, next year we are going to have elections, we'll have again a multi-party coalition, again with a majority of 4. And again all energies will go on political management and survival. And I want to say to you, and a resort to populist measures, governance is about doing something for the poor. but doing it in a manner which is congruent with the overall growth of the economy if possible. That is governance. That is hard governance, hard decisions. I submit to you that our polity as it exists today and the pulls and pressures and the complete indiscipline that often rules in the running of a coalition government and the kind of opposition this then creates makes governance impossible for the best of governments, including the NDA. It may be good governance for short periods, but it's suboptimal governance.
Pawan Verma, if we know all this, then why on earth has the government done nothing? I mean, the finance minister stood up and gave the 10 commandments. These are the standing operating procedure for any economist or any economy. You are defining after 9.5 years of governance the SOP for what normal prudent governance should be. Did it take 9.5 years to realize we should bring the fiscal deficit down? Kiran Majumdar Shaw is a counter. Swapanda, coming to you. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say to Sanjay, nobody is denying or debating the importance of social welfare. I think what we are really saying is that the governance structure is so poor that none of these social welfare schemes are delivering what they are supposed to.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly respond to that very quickly. There is no denying, we acknowledge the fact that there are leakages in delivery systems. We acknowledge that we are not 100% there. We agree, which is why we have looked at schemes like, we have talked about direct benefits transfer, which is why we are talking about computerizing the PDS, which is why we are talking about making Aadhaar become an identity-based method of receiving benefits. But you know, there's one point that I would like to make, and I want to answer Arnab as well.
She's countering. I allow that.
I want to ask you, the 1 rupee rice is now finding its way into the open market. That's what I mean by governance structure. Okay? Yes, even if you look at free medicines, that's not really being done the way it should be. And you talk about NREGA jobs. These are not at all creating real jobs. When industry comes to government and says, look, you subsidize our employment, you give that 100 days, but we will pay for the 200 days and bring them into our labor force. The government says no. Why? Because you don't have a structure. You don't have governance.
No, it's also inbuilt into the act.
Swapan Das Gupta is also adding on to that.
Can I respond to Kiran?
Inbuilt into the act.
Yes, absolutely.
The way in which NREGA has been designed, it's deliberately and willfully non-asset creation, non-skill building.
Absolutely.
In other words, you cannot have anything which creates. That is the point of NREGA. In other words, it is another way of a dole. If you look upon India as giving sops and doles into people's pockets, you will get yourself into a muddle like that.
That's the governance crisis I'm talking about. That government does not really have the true delivery mechanism or the true intent of delivering to those who need it.
Well, can I answer that very quickly?
I think as of now,
I would say that unless you answer very quickly, let me tell
those who have moved the motion have a clear upper hand on the debate.
The rural landscape.
I request the opposition to respond equally.
Yeah. The rural landscape has changed dramatically. Let me tell you that if you go to the rural interiors of India, you'll find a confident household. Manrega has been a game changer in rural India. It has in fact resulted in even the migration that was happening in the urban areas.
That's only on television ads.
And there has been asset creation. Now you can't pick up.
Come on, it's only on television ads.
You can't pick up a couple of isolated examples and generalize that the entire scheme has been a failure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, are you proud of the Right to Information Act?
Yes.
You are. Similarly, right, RTI, similarly the right to food or the right to education, the right to employment, which is Manrega, have been really
significant. What about the right to growth? What about the right to growth?
8.4%.
What about the right to growth?
And let me also give you an answer. Arnab
what about the right of honesty?
Mentioned that
right to honesty. Give us these rights also. Well, let it create an entitlement society. Give us the right to honesty.
Absolutely.
Let us give us the right to efficiency.
Well, let me tell you, you're being dishonest by asking me the question itself, because I think the party that you represent very often gets it wrong. But I want to make one very critical point here, and this is a very pertinent point, that this government is not just about any particular slice of India. And to youngsters in this particular panel in particular, I hope you know that during our time, the IITs have gone up from 7 to 16. IIMs from 6 to 13.
1 minute.
Hear me out.
Sanjay, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Are you reading an excerpt of the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech?
No, I'm not. I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you facts. Well, let me tell you, maybe we should try and recognize the realities of change. I'll tell you what happens. The biggest mistake that we can make in India is when we take growth and progress for granted. You know, we have become, let's not ever become so arrogant in our growth that we begin to tell ourselves that we have a setback, we collapse. The American economy today has a shutdown,
Mr. Sanjay
but they
Jha, we
haven't
have to
given
keep
up on
parity
their
among all the
government.
members of the panel, and the youth participant here is giving you covering fire as you come under an increasing assault of a combined treasury bench.
Talking
Speak
about
to
the
the
kind of
mic,
fixes that the PDS system actually requires, right? Like, nobody is disputing that, yes, there are leakages, as Sir very rightly pointed out. But the very fact that it's operational right now is a place where we can actually go and fix those leakages, right? This is a step forward to actually make that a concrete step. Now, I would completely disagree with ma'am when she says that this is like the intent of the government is not right. No, that's incorrect, right? The intent of the government is very much right. The point is that the moment you've passed a bill, the operational accountability comes to the government, and therefore these leakages can be fixed. More than that, right? Like the setting up of the CCI and like all of these more structures to actually get those clearances in like passed out
That's a few
faster,
weeks
right?
back.
Like tens and billions of dollars have actually been cleared so early. These are things that the government has already taken, right? And that's exactly what we're saying. It's moving towards becoming better and not really worse. It's not responsible for bad economic growth.
Bodhi wanted to come in out here. The CCI appointment setting up was a few months back. Is it too little, too late? Is a point to be considered? Bodhi.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is too little, too late. The question is that they have cleared a lot of projects, but I don't think most of these projects have actually started off. But I just want to ask a question to Sanjay Jha. I think the basic point being made at a more serious level, I mean, it is complex, as Swapan said, but the point is you have an NREGA, you have the Food Security Act. I mean, one can't perhaps dispute the need of such legislation in principle. The question is it in line with the fiscal capacity of the state? I mean, I think that is the basic issue.
See, Bodhi,
at a time when the economy is growing below 5%.
Well, let me tell you, if you read Mr. Chidambaram's statement, there is already a rebound happening. I'm going back to, just a month ago. I was in a television program when an anchor told me, and it wasn't Arnab Goswami, I'll give him full credit for that. When an anchor told me, are we in the middle of a financial emergency? Is India going to head for a debt trap and collapse? 3 weeks later, nobody's talking about the fact of how things have dramatically changed. At that point, when I talked about the potential Syrian crisis, they said, oh my God, here goes Jha making excuses. When we talked about the quantitative easing being withdrawn, everybody said, here we blame it on global factors alone. That is a reality. And Bodhi, I will tell you one point, and this is for the benefit of everybody in the audience. It is common sense that when an economy's current account is in deficit, the rupee will, the rupee will depreciate. Can anybody explain to me? My question is to you.
Sanjay Jha, let's understand the question which
how do you explain the fact that the current account surplus for
Sanjay Jha, very often when we are speaking on satellite links, then I keep complaining that you don't listen to the question. But here I am sitting a few feet away from you, and you are still pretending not to listen to my question.
No, Sanjay Jha, there is a very basic question.
Yeah.
A lady belonging to the Congress party, a very eminent lady, said, I don't care where the money comes from, you've got to find the money. That is the question this was asked.
Well, let me tell you what is
Can I aspire to buy your office in Bombay? I can't.
Well,
it's beyond my capacity. But I can hope to create a more modest office.
I can give it to you as a subsidized rent.
Within my means.
Can I answer
wait, Sanjay, I throw this question to everyone on this side. And this is not my estimate, it's not some TV anchor. It is the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices which estimates that the cost of subsidizing rice and wheat, distributing it nationwide at a subsidized price over the next 3 years is, hold your breath, 512,000 crore rupees. I think this country has the right to ask, where is this money going to come from? Answer that question.
Arnab,
we want to know, because people are losing jobs, EMIs are going up. Productivity is down, manufacturing is at 1%. We have every right to ask where 500,000 crores is going to come from. It's not going to come from thin air.
It's a wrong number. I'll tell you why.
That's
because
a CACP number.
Let me tell you, you're aggregating a totally different subsidy here. The right to food is going to increase your burden by only by
Get the
just let me
moot
tell you,
point. Get the
by
moot
only
point.
23,000 crores, if 700 million people of India get subsidized food grains, our fellow citizens, one of them who could be a future Mahendra Singh Dhoni, one of them, 1 minute, one of them who could be a
get your
future
figures.
gold medalist for
Pawan has
India,
been-
are you going to say that he or she doesn't deserve to have a full meal?
Sanjay Jha, this
How is that a fair
Sanjay Jha,
assessment?
before an election, you should allow the allies to speak, or potential allies to speak. And the potential ally has been trying to speak for quite a while, only if you let him. Pawan Verma.
It's sort of very fast degenerating into a BJP versus Congress debate. And that is not really the framework of the very important motion you've put before this House. And that tendency exists for any discussion we have today. Arnab, you mentioned a sector which I want to use as an illustration point of the essential argument I was making, which is agriculture. Agriculture in this country, whether under the NDA or under the UPA, has been growing between 2 and 3%, the old Hindu rate of growth. 60% of the people of this country live off agriculture. If agricultural productivity as a result of hard decisions that need to be taken rather than populist solutions like MSP increase, minimum support price increase, if that sector stagnates, how are you going to expect all kinds of subsidies which are given in lieu of agricultural productivity to work? That is the point. That is what I meant, that irrespective of government, whichever governments come, use the populist resolve, which is raise the minimum support price, which continues to benefit already rich farmers. We need another green revolution in agriculture.
You raised a very important point of agricultural productivity, and the second green revolution will come from biotech crops. This government has not taken the bold decision of allowing genetically modified crops. That was regulatory, it was a regulatory process.
It's been stopped by one, I think it's been stopped by one minister as we
Yeah,
know.
so how can you
I think
say
but the
that-
question
And one non-minister.